The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
According to the survey of the International Republican Institute, IRI, 86% of respondents support joining the European Union, 79% joining NATO. According to the public opinion poll published by the International Republican Institute, the largest part of respondents consider the EU and the USA to be important political and economic partners for Georgia. According to the public opinion poll published by the International Republican Institute, 73% of respondents do not support allowing Russian citizens to enter Georgia without a visa, register a business, or buy property. In a meeting with Tbilisi Mayor Kakha Kaladze and Finance Minister Lasha Khutsishvili, the Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili has announced the allocation of €475 million from the state budget for the comprehensive renovation of the Tbilisi metro carriages. The Singapore International Commercial Court has ordered Credit Suisse Trust Ltd, a subsidiary of Credit Suisse based in Singapore, to pay $750 million for breaching its duty to safeguard the assets of Bidzina Ivanishvili as trustee as of 30th March 2008. This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Kvanchilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up Business and Economics Week for you. Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili held a business lunch with Paul Herchinsky, EU mission head in Georgia, and ambassadors of EU member states. The meeting was held at the initiative of the diplomats. It was related to the recommendation issued by the European Commission for the status of an EU candidate country to be granted by the European Council to Georgia. Ambassadors congratulated the PM on the positive recommendation of the European Commission. The Prime Minister of Georgia highlighted the historic importance of the referred recommendation and expressed gratitude to the diplomatic corps for the demonstrated support. Successful reforms implemented by the government of Georgia and progress achieved by the country on its path of European integration were summarized at the meeting. As the Prime Minister of Georgia noted, joint efforts of the ruling team have led to the implementation of almost all the recommendations in a short period of time that were defined by the European Commission, thereby confirming the readiness of the government to continue an active process of reforms. The head of government of Georgia expressed hopes that the country will get the status of the EU candidate country in December as recommended by the European Commission. He stressed the support of EU member states in this process and noted that Georgian authorities will continue having a constant dialogue and close coordination with European colleagues. Ilya Darchiashvili, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Revash Javelidze, head of the government administration, attended the meeting. The Ministry of Economy has announced the initiation of the first energy dialogue between the European Union and Georgia. The Vice Prime Minister of Georgia, Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development, Leman Davitashvili, and European Commissioner for Energy Affairs, Kadri Simpson, held the inaugural meeting in a dialogue format. The meeting highlighted that high-level energy dialogue holds particular significance for Georgia, given its stage in the process of securing EU candidate status. Vice Prime Minister Davitashvili expressed gratitude to the European Commissioner for the support extended during this crucial period. Davitashvili placed great emphasis on the decisive nature of the current phase, noting its significance not only politically but also in the realms of energy and sustainable development. According to the Minister of Economy, the dialogue proceeded by intensive cooperation on energy legislation, regulations, policy, and infrastructure improvement aimed at deepening collaboration in the energy sector. Key topics included connectivity development, ongoing or planned energy sector reforms, energy efficiency, renewable energy development, and significant projects such as the Black Sea Underwater Electric Cable Initiative, which secured a particular focus. The parties expressed optimism that the discussions within the high-level energy dialogue framework would foster closer ties and enhance cooperation in the energy sector.
I also highlighted the importance of future investments into the renewables, because it makes sense to trade electricity all year round, and despite the fact that hydropower plays such an important role here in Georgian electricity market, it is seasonal resource. So future investments into wind and solar are necessary. And I also invited Minister to join our global pledge that will be signed after 2 weeks in COP28, and that will address the global challenge and will prioritize energy efficiency, and will also be pledged to triple globally the renewables. We have already managed to mobilize considerable investments under the economic and investment plan in Georgia. So approximately 1.8 billion euros so far, and of which 126 million are for the energy sector. So this includes investments in electricity interconnections. And the upcoming 2023 annual package for 85 million is planned to be adopted in November. And this will be key to advance some of our flagship projects. Again, electricity interconnections are priorities right now.
Georgian Finance Minister Lasha Khutsishvili on Wednesday said the Georgian government continued the process of further harmonization with the European Union regulations and added the European Commission's recommendation for the country to be granted the EU membership. Candidate status was another proof of the progress achieved within the domestic public finance management reform. Khutsishvili told MPs the government was preparing the EU economic reforms plan document for the first time using the methodology developed by the bloc for candidate countries. He said the reform of internal financial management and control had been carried out over the years through the Harmonization Center of the Ministry of Finance, while the tax system of Georgia had been successfully developing for years with the principle of maximum compatibility with EU regulations and was largely harmonized. The minister said the efforts provided for permanent maintenance of sustainable macro-fiscal parameters and strict, but at the same time efficient and flexible fiscal discipline. Transparency International Georgia, TI Georgia, published a quarterly newsletter on political donations. The newsletter gives an overview of the donations made by political parties from July the 1st through September 30, 2023. From the trends that have been identified, particularly noteworthy are the donors of the Georgian Dream, more than half of whom are individuals connected with companies producing wine or other alcoholic beverages. A considerable part of them have been receiving various types of subsidies, preferential loans, or public procurement contracts from the state for many years. In addition, some of the donations raise the suspicion that they are made fictitious donors, which is a violation of the law. From July the 1st up to September 30, 2023, all the parties received donations of up to up to around 2 million lari in total, which is 4 times as much as the respective figure of the previous quarter. The Georgian Dream received 65% of the donations. The United National Movement ranks second. The Lelo for Georgia party ranks third, and Generations for Georgia ranks fourth. The UNM takes the lead in terms of the number of donors who made a donation 55 times during the reporting period. The Georgian Dream received 51 donations, although the share of large donors among them is far higher. From July 1 up to September 30, most of the Georgian Dream's donors were individuals connected with companies producing wine or other alcoholic beverages. The winemaker donors donated a total of 940,000 lari to the Georgian Dream in August and September. The wine-producing companies connected with the donors have obtained simplified procurement contracts worth more than 4 million lari since 2013. They received preferential agro credits of more than 14 million lari in the years 2013-2021 and subsidies in the amount of more than 70 million lari in 2021-2022. The donations of the winemaker donors were made precisely in the period before the grape harvest of 2023, for whose subsidy of more than 60 million lari has been appropriated in the state budget. 15 of the companies connected with the donors are involved in the subsidy program for grape harvest. Against the background of subsidies of millions of lari, at least 3 companies connected with the donors, Askaneli Brothers, Sinandali Old Cellar and Georgian Wine House, were among the wine-producing companies that exported the most wine to Russia in 2022. The high dependence of the Georgian wine on the Russian market contains a threat as Russia uses it as a leverage for political pressure. TI Georgia has already disseminated a recommendation in which it calls on the Georgian government to stop subsidizing those companies that increase Georgia's economic dependence on Russia. In total, 51 donors donated over 1 million lari for the benefit of the Georgian dream in the past quarter, which is more than the combined donations made in the previous 3 quarters from October 1, 2022 to July 1, 2023. 22 donors donated 778,000 lari in total to the ruling party. The aforementioned companies practically have not obtained public procurement contracts in the reporting period, although they have obtained 1,700 simplified procurement contracts worth more than 4 million lari since 2013. Of these, up to 1 million lari was received by Tel Aviv Seller LLC, a company connected with Beata Tsiskarishvili. More than 800,000 lari went to Samo LLC, connected with Zurabdek Anuzishvili, and a contract with a value of 760,000 lari was obtained by company Bessini LLC, connected with Archie Lobzhanidze. A part of the alcoholic beverages companies connected with the aforementioned donors received preferential agro credits of up to 12 million lari in the years 2013-2021 and subsidies in the amount of more than 17 million lari in 2021-2022. In the table below, we see a list of those companies connected with the donors that have received various subsidies or preferential agro credits from the state, as well as total donations made by individuals connected with these companies for the benefit of the Georgian dream. What was new in the economy this week? It's time for our weekly news and outlook.
Irakli Garibashvili, Prime Minister of Georgia, held and led yet another meeting of Demographic Council of Georgia with the government administration. Council members discussed the current trends and needs of national demography, which are identified in the current setting for improvement of demographic indicators in Georgia. As noted at the meeting, a study has been launched to identify reasons for declining indicators, avenues for improvement, and barriers that hamper the demographic advancement. Interagency work group members submitted a package of initiatives developed for the improvement of demographic indicators in the country, including the extension and expansion of current programs, as well as launch of new ones. The work group will be presenting referred package of initiatives in a more detailed manner at the following meeting of Demographic Council. Georgian Finance Minister Alasha Khutsishvili on Wednesday said the country's correct and healthy macroeconomic and fiscal policy implemented during the pandemic and post-pandemic period had aided in a rapid economic recovery and maintained macroeconomic stability and credit ratings. In his comments while presenting the revised version of the 2024 state budget in the parliament, Khutsishvili told lawmakers Georgia and recorded the best BB positive rating in history according to the Fitch Ratings, an American-based credit rating agency. We have one of the healthiest and economic growth-oriented tax system in the world, which is recognized by international organizations as a good example for the world, he said. The official added Georgia had one of the most developed business environments and lowest tax rates according to the World Bank, while also having very efficient tax administration, which allowed the country to present a significantly increased budget every year and implement fiscal consolidation. The National Bank of Georgia published a report on money transfer statistics for October 2023. In October 2023, the volume of money transfers from abroad constituted $283 million USD, which is 43.6% less than the amount in October 2022. According to the document, 96.8% of the total money transfers from abroad came from 26 largest partner countries, with the volume of transfers from these countries each exceeding $1 million in October 2023. In October 2022, the share of these 26 countries constituted 87% of the total volume of money transfers. The decrease is mainly related to the reduction of money transfers by the persons arriving from the Russian Federation. If in October 2022, $295 million were transferred from Russia to Georgia, this year this amount stood at $61.8 million, which represents a 78% drop. Instead, remittances from Italy, the USA, Greece, Germany and other countries have increased, from where the remittances are mainly transfers of employed persons who emigrated from Georgia. In Q3 2023, the number of arrivals from international non-resident travelers in the country of Georgia equaled 2.7 million, which was 90.4% higher compared to the data from the same period of the previous year. Most of the income, 42.5%, were made by travelers of 31-50 age group, the Georgian National Statistics Service of Georgia reported. The number of visits by international visitors from the above-mentioned number made up 2.3 million, which was 21% higher compared to the data from the same period of 2022. 74.5% of international visitors were only tourists. In Q3 2023, the largest number of visitors was from Russia. On the second place is Turkey and on the third place is Armenia. The expenditures during the visit made in Q3 2023 equal to 4.8 billion lari, which was 7.3% higher compared to the data from the same period of the previous year. Average expenditure on visit decreased by 11.3% compared to Q3 2022 and amounted to 2,105 lari. Passengers will be able to check in independently at Tbilisi International Airport. To self-check in, booths of French company Easier placed at the airport allow the passengers to undergo registration, choose desirable seats and print the boarding ticket. TAV Georgia company operating the Tbilisi and Batumi international airports invested 150,000 lari in the project. Passengers of two air companies will be able to register independently at the initial stage. The number of air companies will increase gradually. Easier offers a wide range of self-services equipment for airports and airlines, ground transportation and public institutions. According to the revised estimate of National Statistics Office of Georgia, gross domestic product at current prices in 2022 amounted to 70.265 million lari, up by 20.4% year-on-year. In 2022, the real GDP increased by 10.4%. In 2022, GDP deflator percentage change equaled 9.1% year-on-year. The largest share of GDP by activity are held by wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles, which accounted for 15.9%, and manufacturing 11.3%, according to the National Statistics Office of Georgia. In 2022, real growth was registered in information and communication, which amounted to 59.1%, wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles 10.8%, transportation and storage 24.7%, construction 16.5%, manufacturing 10.5%, electricity, gas, steam and air conditioning supply 29.3%, accommodation and food service activities 14.6%. A decrease was recorded in human health and social work activities 16.3% and real estate activities 3.7%. Retreating from the European past would be the end of Georgia, so we are moving forward, the President of Georgia, Salome Zurabishvili, said while addressing representatives of the field of culture in Orbeliani Palace. The President of Georgia spoke about the vital importance of European integration process of Georgia. European integration is the way to return Georgia to the European family. This can take many different forms, but we know there can be no backing out. Retreating from this past would be the end friend of Georgia, so we are moving forward. First of all, you go forward and we all follow you, said the president of Georgia. The campaign of signature Our Voice to Europe continues. The campaign started on November 8 at the initiative of President of Georgia and aims to apply to leaders of the European Union with a request to grant Georgia the EU candidate status.
This week, the International Competition and Consumer Protection Conference was held in Tbilisi. The conference, jointly organized by the leading Georgian regulatory agencies, was attended by many international speakers and experts. BMJ's Business Evening and Tech Inform host Georgi Aronia had the chance to talk to William Kovacic, the former chair of the Federal Trade Commission of the United States, about the role of the regulation and the competition environment in Georgia.
Mr. Kovacic, hi. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for coming to Georgia to attend this summit and to talking to BMG.
It's absolutely wonderful to be back in Tbilisi, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Mr. Kovacic, let's begin our interview with a bit of a general question. How does the existence of the legal competition framework affect a country in general, any given country, and what is needed for right policies to be implemented at right time in any given country?
One of the most important factors is to begin with a good competition authority. That's a function of selecting good personnel, giving them suitable powers to enforce the law, to gather information, to do studies that identify areas of appropriate attention. And it's also a requirement that there be good courts to oversee the operation of the authority, that you have good civic associations and groups to provide commentary on what the authority does. Another vital element is to have a good university system, to have an intellectual infrastructure that supports the development of research, but also provides the talent that will go into the system. And you need an attentive parliament to provide oversight of policy choices and guidance made by the authority, to make them accountable for the choices they've made. These are many of the ingredients that go into building a good system.
Basically, division of power and democratic principles all around the board, right?
Yes, to have autonomy in the decision to use the agency's authority. That is, you don't want political leaders telling the authority that you have to prosecute this person or you have to leave this person alone. That is, when we talk about independence and autonomy, that's the autonomy that I think is crucial. But isolation from oversight would be a mistake. That's why the courts are important. That's why the oversight of elected officials is important. The agency should be accountable for its broad policy choices, but it should be able to use its prosecutorial powers and its investigative powers without intervention by political officials.
Mr. Kovacic, according to right-wing economic theory, markets need no intervention from the government because they can regulate themselves. We know that this, to the extreme, is not present in any country. Then there are different regulatory authorities, especially in competition as well. What is the general idea of having a competition authority within a country? And why is it considered that a competition authority, in especially emerging countries, is a very important political body that helps small countries to grow economically as well?
There are two respects in which the competition authority can ensure that markets work well for consumers and work well for the interests of the nation. One has to do with the activity of other government bodies. In emerging markets that have a long history of intrusive government participation in the market, there tend to be a number of forms of government intervention that unnecessarily restrict entry into the market and limit the capacity of new entrepreneurs or smaller firms to grow and develop. It's very important to have a voice in the country that tells the government in those instances to back away from those kinds of policies. So serving as an advocate for competition to create conditions that enable good rivalry by eliminating unnecessary government intervention is one crucial function. But the second is that private actors will, from time to time, choose strategies that are very good for the private actors, but not good for the larger society. Sometimes this takes the form of cartel arrangements by which firms decide who will bid on government tenders. Sometimes it takes the form of mergers that combine otherwise competitive enterprises into a single dominant firm. So there are what specialists call market failures that arise from private conduct that are suitable targets for intervention as well. So dealing with both public restraints on competition and private restraints on competition are well regarded as being suitable measures for intervention.
Let me go deeper about the society part of it. What are the social effects that competition policy have on a given society?
One of the most important is to promote growth. Competition law by itself cannot increase GDP in a dramatic way. It cannot transform the economy by itself, but it helps enable the establishment of conditions in which growth takes place. So one valuable contribution for the larger society is to make society wealthier. Another contribution is to ensure that the less well-advantaged in society have the benefits of economic growth. That means ensuring that competition thrives for things such as public services that are purchased through government procurement, that otherwise might be the subject of bid rigging schemes, to make sure that those services, education, transportation, healthcare, to take examples, are provided in a competitive way. Those services tend to have special benefits for the disadvantaged in society. It gives them an opportunity to have good services, to become market participants. So that's a crucial contribution to society as well. I'd say a final contribution is that it gives society confidence that the great political bargain that many emerging countries have made will be fulfilled. And that political bargain is to have a liberal economic order that relies on private enterprise to provide goods and services throughout the economy. But the other side of the bargain is that citizens can have assurance that that system will operate to their benefit. And the establishment of a competition policy regime, a competition authority, is part of fulfilling that bargain. If citizens are convinced that those arrangements are in place, there's a greater likelihood that they will have trust in their government, trust in the markets. That kind of civic trust, I think, is an indispensable ingredient in having not only an effective market system, but having an effective political process too.
Having a competition authority or competition legal framework is one thing, but then another thing is the way it's enforced within a country. So let me ask you this: how big of a headache in general is the enforcement part, and what needs to be done for the policy to be enforced in a better and more systematic way?
There's nothing easy about enforcement. It can be a headache that keeps you up all night and gives you pain during the day. In many countries, in many legal fields, there's a great distance between an aspiration, a policy idea, and its actual realization in practice. Crossing that distance requires what we would call effective implementation. That's a function of having a good agency that is not only expert in theory but in practice. It's a function of having adequate tools to enforce the law. It's a function of the fact of having scrutiny and oversight by courts, by elected officials about policy choices, by having a vibrant community of commentary that tests the assumptions on which the agency is acting and subjects its activities to commentary that is tough, critical, and informative. These are all conditions that are important for effective policy implementation. I would say a last ingredient, especially for a newer authority, is to have the benefit of learning that's taken place in other jurisdictions. Today there are about 140 jurisdictions that have competition law systems. Roughly 110 of those have been created since 1990. So we've had over 3 decades now of experience with the development and implementation of competition regimes across a wide range of countries. They've generated know-how that's very useful for deciding how to enforce the law, how to conduct investigations, what theories of harm tend to be successful, which aren't. It's enormously valuable, I would say indispensable, for a newer competition authority to draw upon that experience to accelerate the process of learning, rather than trying to discover everything for the first time on its own.
One of the risks associated, well, at least theoretically associated with newly developed competition agencies is political scrutiny from the government. When the government uses a given authority for whatever reasons, for political reasons, obviously. What should be done to avoid this risk, especially in emerging countries such as Georgia?
One of the most important elements is to develop awareness of the importance of having certain types of autonomy and to understand the type of autonomy that's crucial. The autonomy that matters most is that the agency is not subject to direction by elected officials or other government appointees who are instructing it exactly how to use its authority. For example, in the case of a merger, to tell the authority, allow the merger to go ahead because my political friends are carrying out the transaction. Or say in the case of a cartel prosecution, leave my friends alone. These are people who supported my ascent to power and government, leave them alone. That kind of intervention directly in the decision to investigate and prosecute is extremely destructive. Because when agencies appear before courts, the argument they're making to the courts is you should defer to my judgment. Why? Because I'm using expertise that you don't have. If it's apparent to the courts that the basis for the decision to prosecute is the political instruction or coercion of elected officials, there's no expertise to defer to, and they won't defer to it. So the very effectiveness of the agency requires that kind of insulation from certain types of political intervention. But to say that autonomy is important in some areas is not to say that isolation from any kind of interaction with the political process is appropriate. One, I think it's completely unattainable. You cannot be completely independent if you are asking Parliament every year for a budget. There's a limit to the independence that you can have there. The other is that you have to have a conversation with them because on a regular basis, you are seeking upgrades. Successful systems receive upgrades in the form of more budget, more authority, greater capacity to use authority in ways that perhaps have not been used in the past. So you're always going to the political officials periodically and asking for upgrades. If you haven't had a conversation with them, if they don't know who you are, they're likely to say no. So to be effective, there has to be an engagement. And as we were saying before, there has to be an engagement for purposes of accountability. It's inappropriate for an elected official to tell the authority, sue my political enemies and reward my political friends. It is entirely appropriate to say, tell me about your philosophy for merger control. Explain to me why you have used your power in these ways, and especially as a safeguard for overreaching by any competition agency, to subject the agency to questioning, examination about decisions taken in the past. That kind of oversight promotes the accountability that tends to ensure that human beings, tempted perhaps to do things for reasons that are not related to the larger social well-being, channel their ambition and their efforts to serve society and not simply themselves. So there's a tension among the goals of autonomy, accountability, and effectiveness. And I had a colleague once who, in political science, said that the place you want in the solar system of policymaking is like the place of the Earth in the solar system that we know. You want to be close enough to the sun that you are not frozen out, but you do not want to be so close that you're burned to a crisp. You want to be the Earth. You don't want to be Mercury. You don't want to be Saturn. You want to be close enough. That's the sweet spot that an agency wants to occupy.
What a great metaphor. Mr. Kovacic, let's talk about the other side. What should be done for regulators to perceive businesses, companies, as more of allies and not as units that somehow are within the direct jurisdiction, you know what I mean, right? So that the whole system works more smoothly.
I think there has to be understanding of two kinds, and it's an understanding that comes out of a discussion between business enterprises and the regulators. The business enterprises have to understand that the effective functioning of the economy depends on the acceptance of certain norms of good behavior. That in the area of consumer protection, for example, they won't lie to their customers. They won't cheat them by misrepresenting the quality of their goods and the nature of their goods. They won't engage in cartels. Again, to take the case of public procurement, cartels that rig bids on public tenders that would raise the price that the offerors obtain, but cause governments to spend less on needed social services. They have to understand that certain kinds of behavior destroy the effective operation of the markets and invite far more intrusive government intervention in the economy. Business people have to understand that, as well as realizing that their adherence to these norms is vital to generating long-term, durable public support for a market system. The regulators need a certain profound understanding as well, and that is to know the crucial role that business plays as a source of wealth, as a source of products and services, innovation and dynamism for the economy. If you begin by the assumption that most business people are not acting in the social interest, that leads you on a path towards intervention that can be quite misguided. That is, many business people understand the importance of government oversight. It's important for the agency to understand what business does, how it does it, and to know the rationale for the specific actions that they're taking. That's an understanding that the regulator has to develop as well. That understanding on both the regulated industry side and the regulator side, I think is usefully developed through a process of mutual discussion in public settings, such as this one, workshops to which the larger public is invited, events convened by universities within the country that provide a forum for discussion about the rationale for business practices, but also the importance of public intervention to deal with market failures, and to act as an ally in business to push aside public controls that needlessly restrict competition, with an important business constituency being new, smaller enterprises or would-be entrepreneurs. That two-sided understanding is very important for the functioning of the economy.
What would your advice be to Georgia, which is has somewhat little experience in this regard? How to find the golden ratio? How to find the Earth's place in the solar system, so that on one hand businesses are not limited and the wealth that they generate is there, but on the other side the rights of the consumers are also protected?
One of the most important means for achieving that kind of balance is to have a component of the agency's agenda that would consist of what we might call research and analysis, policy research and development. That kind of research focuses on examining the existing condition of commerce within the nation, but also examining the effects of past intervention or a lack of past intervention. It's a culture that focuses on trying to assess the consequences of past government policy decisions, including the decisions of the Competition Authority. That provides guidance about where intervention is appropriate. In many ways, it means that the agency seeks to be as smart as it possibly can about deciding how to use its resources. This is a way of adjusting the agency's programs to get the greatest possible value for society from its expenditures. In many ways, simply put, evaluation is a crucial means of deciding whether you're on the right path. Evaluation is not easy. When you do an evaluation, sometimes you discover that you didn't make the right choice, or that you simply had no effect at all. In many cases, public officials, or I guess human beings generally, would prefer not to have that be the result of the evaluation. So there can be a tendency to resist it altogether and say, let's just assume we're doing a good job. So having a culture that promotes continuing assessment of performance is a very good discipline that pushes you in the direction of making policy choices that occupy the sweet spot in the solar system of policymaking.
Have you had the chance to talk to or to work with the Georgia National Competition Agency? Could you maybe rate whatever they've done over the last years?
Of course, the Georgian system has gone through several phases. It began in one relatively weak form in the 1990s. That was discontinued. It was relaunched in a new form in a more modern era. I suppose we could say that the history of the authority as we know it now is a relatively short history. So, and in many ways, still difficult to assess in a meaningful way. My view in looking at the experience of other agencies is you need 20, 25 years to know whether in a basic way, in a confident way, that you're on the right path. You have to gain experience from your own enforcement. You have to see how the system performs in the face of political regime changes. That is there durable political support for the program? If you have a change from a political party of one perspective to another, do they respect the core functions of the agency and continue to support it? A regime change can bring new perspectives. That can be a healthy part of the agency's development. But does the agency fare well in the face of political changes? When there's controversy, does it adjust its policies in a sensible way? If it were the metaphor of boxing, how well do you take a punch? There'll be times when things don't go well, and you have to pick yourself up and get back to work in a meaningful way. So it takes a while to see that. My view is that if we do a preliminary assessment, there are a lot of things taking place that I like a lot. One, I have observed over time the work of the agency in recruiting personnel. At my university, George Washington University in Washington, we have the enormous, great privilege of having students from Georgia and former employees of the Competition Authority in our graduate program. I have seen through them that the flow of talent into the agency is very impressive and very encouraging. I wouldn't say that having great talent by itself is sufficient to succeed. Without it, there's no point in trying. So one very promising thing I see, reflected in my own students, but in meeting others, is that the quality of the talent pool goes up and up. That's a great sign. Now, I know that there's some movement back to the private sector, to other government ministries, but that's a good thing. If nobody wants to poach your employees, that's a terrible sign. So that kind of turnover is healthy, but you have to keep replacing them. So one thing I like a lot is the development of a stronger and stronger talent pool. A second thing I like is the habit and custom that's developed of the agency to assess its performance, to ask, how are we doing? Do we have the right mix of skills and responsibilities? Do we have the right resources? As a way of seeking upgrades. If you don't seek upgrades on a regular basis in this field, you're falling behind. And I think that's a healthy culture. Another thing I like a great deal is the formation of constructive relationships with other regulators that have overlapping or related policy duties in areas such as procurement, telecommunications, oversight of the water supply. In a number of areas, you see the authority building relationships that I think are going to be vital for success in the future. That's extremely healthy. Another thing I like, a good sign, is that you see Georgia engage deeply with international organizations that either on a global basis or on a regional basis or on a bilateral basis are a vital sense of know-how and intellectual tech transfer to the operation of the authority. I think the Georgian agency leadership sees that as a way in which its own capability can be lifted dramatically, that you don't operate in isolation and have to learn entirely by yourself, that in a world of 140 competition authorities, there's been a lot of experimentation, and there are many opportunities to learn from what they did, because they're testing what works, what doesn't work. Is any country identical to Georgia in its characteristics? Of course not.
Mr. Kovacic, let me ask you the last question. We're attending the Consumer and Competition Protection International Conference here in Tbilisi. How was your experience like? First part, and then, in your opinion, why is it important to have such a platform in emerging countries?
It's a wonderful conference. It's wonderful in several ways. It's an excellent collection of perspectives from a variety of different institutions inside and outside of Georgia. It's an enormous honor for an outsider like me to have a chance to not only observe that, but participate in the conversation. The conversation is, I think, casting a very helpful light on existing programs and directions for future policy development. This is a very healthy element of the development of a good system. And it also reflects the engagement internally, the collaboration among the Competition Authority and other regulators, but also the cooperation that the authority is engaged in with other nations, which is a vital part of its growth and development, and I think an essential element on the path to ultimate membership in the European Union itself. So that all of those things are extremely positive, and I find the discussion to be taking place at the highest possible level. I see it as a first-rate seminar, which I would enroll in if I had the chance to go, and for myself, having the opportunity to be on the platform is a delight. I first came to Georgia in the mid-1990s. I've had many opportunities to return, many to work with the public authorities responsible for competition law. So there's a deep personal satisfaction for me to continue to have an opportunity to observe that progress. But this is a first-rate program that's not simply a celebration of the mere existence of the agency. We don't celebrate longevity for its own sake, but an opportunity to take stock of what's taking place and, crucially, to identify areas in which things could be better.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kovacic, for your time, for your insights. We hope to see you again in the future and then to have the chance once again to talk about competition law.
Thank you for the privilege of meeting with you and discussing this crucial element of policy development in Georgia, and I greatly look forward to next time to continue the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And on to our reporter Natia Taktakishvili, who will sum up this week's business news and outlook. Natia, the floor is yours. In 2023, the sewing company Imeri, located in Kutaisi, started cooperation with the Italian brand Moncler, and as the director of the company, Maya Simonidze, told BMWG, 80% of the factory's orders account for Moncler. According to her, Imeri mostly serves the exporting markets. 2023 was a transitional year for us. Last year, we started cooperation with the Italian brand Moncler, and in 2023, 80% of the factory's load accounted for the brand's orders. We switched to a new segment. Currently, quality remains the main challenge. The Italian brand demands amazing quality, but this is also achievable, she says. The director of Imeri notes that at this stage there are 6 sewing lines. The productivity of each line totals to 50 units per day. The yacht dealer company Ramses Yachts has been operating in Georgia since 2014. The company started sales in 2019 and sold a total of 19 yachts, a cutter boat, since then. It should be noted that this number of yachts was sold only to Georgian citizens, as the director of Ramses Yachts, Georgi Chikwaidze, explains to BMG TV. Every next sold yacht was 5 or 6 meters larger than the previous model. The first yacht we sold was 9 meters long. Just a few days ago, we signed a contract for the sale of 36-meter Azimuth Grande model. In our business, this is like the biggest celebration. This is a paradox because even successful countries in this industry rarely have such a chance, notes Chikwaidze. As Chikwaidze declares, the cheapest yacht price totals to 112,000 USD, while the most expensive one was valued at 2 million euro. In 2017, Ramses Yachts brought the Italian yacht manufacturing company Azimuth Yachts. Now the Ramses Yachts cooperate with other world-leading brands as well. The leather accessories brand Juice will be exported to Italy by the summer 2024. Giulietta Adanaia, the founder of the brand, told TV program Women's Narrative, "I started the business with 50 lari amid the pandemic. I make leather accessories and mostly our products are sold online, although this does not prevent us from going beyond the borders. Negotiations are already actively underway with Italy and we think we will export 30% of the production by summer," said Giulietta Adanaia. Juice offers its customers up to 100 types of leather accessories tailored to people of any taste, the price of which range from 50 lari to 500 lari, depending on the complexity and exclusivity of the product. The founder of the brand declares that making leather accessories is not just a business, it's a kind of art therapy for hair. Juice has educational training center which learns how to make leather products, drawing up a business plan, learning how to manage finances, and etc. Duration of the program is 1 month. The cost of which is 600 lari by this stage. The founder of the brand has already trained 50 people. 90% of them are women. The brand juice appeared on the market 3 years ago and the products are sold online. Agro Guest House Corena has been working with 100% loans since April. The founder of Corena, Maiko Gezevadze, spoke about the current demand from international and local guests for the agro house operating in Emirati region in TV program Women's Narrative. We have a very busy season. The hotel is working with 100% load since April and has been busy until now. We can receive 80 people at the same time, but when we can't accommodate guests, we transfer them to a friend's hotel, said Maiko Gezevadze. The cost of accommodation in Corena costs 100 lari per person, including meals and a free cooking masterclass. It's possible to book a hotel without meals. As for the offers, we create such an environment that it is not just a place to spend the night. Guests should feel like a home. Our business card is a cooking masterclass, says Maiko Gezevadze. 80% of Corena guests are international visitors, mainly from European countries. These are Czech Republic, Poland, France, Germany, and etc. Agro House Corena is located 7 kilometers from Kutaisi in the historical village of Galati, which started operating 15 years ago. Currently, 14 locals are employed in the farm. Georgian lollipops and jelly bones will appear on the market soon. Giorgi Takhnishvili, the founder of Handy Candy, told TV program Women's Narrative. We are working on the production of lollipops and jelly bones jointly with the partner company Tema. Georgian products will be available to consumers in Q3 2024, which will be produced in the new enterprise, Giorgi Takhnishvili noted. It's likely that Georgian lollipops and jelly bones will be presented on the market under the name of Lau, although it is not decided finally. We will focus on the quality. It will be 20% more expensive than imported lollipops, and the price will be around 2 lari. As for the price of jelly bones, we have not determined it yet, Giorgi Takhnishvili stated. Company Handy Candy has been producing exclusive Georgian handmade candies with Japanese method since the end of 2022. Company plans to export its productions by 2025. Ukrainian confectionery Future Baker was opened in Tbilisi with the support of Care Caucasus. Ketevan Khachidze, executive director of the organization Care Caucasus, spoke about the details in TV program Women's Narrative. Future Baker is located in the Saburtalu district. At this stage, the pastry shop offers a variety of cakes and pastries. However, in addition to confectionery products, the founder of the brand also offers masterclasses to Ukrainian and Georgian women and plans to offer courses for adults in the future. The business initiative is supported with the framework of the project supporting Ukrainian refugees to meet their humanitarian needs. According to Ketevan Khachidze, in order to participate in this program, a person needs to be a citizen of Ukraine who arrived in Georgia after the Ukrainian war. They must have a good business idea and plan to stay in Georgia for a long time to make the business sustainable. Care Caucasus launched this program in August. With the support of the program, over 35 Ukrainian businesses we have started in different big cities of Georgia with an investment of more than 500,000 lari. First of all, it will contribute to the economic stability of Ukrainian citizens in Georgia and their integration into Georgian society. A new brand, Melo, appeared in Tbilisi. The brand has been operating on the market for several months, and as Nutsa Mikeladze, one of the founder of the brand TV program Women's Narrative, Melo offers eco-friendly, high-quality word brands to its customers. Melo represents European niche brands with high quality made from sustainable fabric for children. For us, this is one of the main criteria. This is a guarantee that the product is completely organic and has been tested for harmful substances, said Nutsa Mikeladze. Along with the word brands presented in Melo, you will also find 2 Georgian brands, namely Eshu Kids and Flying Gaze, which also make clothes from natural fabric. The price of products in Melo range from 150 lari to 500 lari. The founders invested 100,000 to create brand. Irakli Garibashvili, Prime Minister of Georgia, held and led a meeting of the Investors' Council at the government administration on Wednesday. Claire Olblas, Deputy Head of Mission from the Embassy of the UK to Georgia, and Olkis Rayonius Drakinos, Regional Director of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, for the Caucasus, made welcome speeches at the meeting launched by the head of government of Georgia. Georgi Cherkezishvili, Secretary of the Investors' Council, shared information with participants of the meeting on the implementation of the decisions made at the previous meeting, as well as a general overview of its performance. Focus was made on the positive recommendation of the European Commission for the status of an EU candidate country to be granted to Georgia by the European Council. The Prime Minister of Georgia stated that this decision is historic and gives new opportunities to the country. Participants of the meeting discussed the engagement of the Investors' Council in the reforms implemented by Georgia on its journey towards European integration. Members of the Investors' Council also discussed the proposed amendments to the law on entrepreneurship, including the re-registration of businesses craved to be postponed at the decision of the Prime Minister of Georgia. Re-registration of businesses will be postponed and active work will be pursued by the government and parliament on the matter. Export promotion of Georgian produce to the EU market was also discussed at the meeting, along with the actual steps to be made towards this end. New tools under the umbrella of access to finance were also discussed. Current investment climate of the country was among the topics of discussion, along with progress achieved by the government of Georgia towards economic advancement and large-scale projects actively designed and developed by the economic team of the government of Georgia under the instructions of Irakli Garibashvili. Inflows likely balancing the sentiments and elevated USD yields. Such was the summary of the week from TBC's chief economist Otar Nadaraya in his recent overview. According to the chief economist, from the latest data released, TBC Capital observes the negative impact of the elevated USD yields on the share of non-residents holding the Lari securities in October. Also, they note an even stronger increase in the FC deposit relative to the ANC, often being the indication of the sentiments. Here they once again highlight that the impact of seasonality, once most of the market participants expect one, at least could be misleading. The same holds true for so-called election-related expectations. Summing up, October and November net inflows are likely at normalized levels, as despite an adverse impact of the sentiments and high USD yields, TBC Capital sees the Lari marginally but still gaining momentum. Although with the NBG selling some of its recently accumulated reserves. While TBC Capital does not have a relevant October data yet, TBC's chief economist bets there are no depreciation pressures on the FX market, as based on historical behavior, Otar Nadaraya does not recall episodes of the Lari strengthening being driven by the central bank interventions, which usually are rather smoothing only, as under the often used IMF language, also for the floaters, curbing the undaily fluctuations, or put it differently, reducing the unwarranted currency volatility. For more updates from relevant, trusted and distinguished sources, and what's more, for exclusive interviews and insights, follow us on BM.G and watch BMG TV. The Checkpoints will return live next Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp. Till then.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.